Good morning, Glen York. All right, we are going to continue with Women's History Month. Today, we are going to travel to what is now United States in North America, and we're going to learn about a very, very famous Native American. Her name is Sacagawea or Sacagawea. Not quite sure about the pronunciation. There are two schools of thought about that one. Today, we're going to learn about her. She was a Shoshone woman born in 1788 who at age 16 met and helped Lewis and Clark expedition. They were sent to go ahead and explore the western territory of United States before anybody was there. They had no idea what they were going to get themselves into, and so they needed some help. So we are going to discuss how did they conscript Sacagawea into helping them out. She was a fascinating woman. So here we go.
A long time ago, not many years after America had become its own country, much of the forests and mountains and rivers hadn't been discovered. There was a vast area where natives and animals lived and was still fresh and dangerous and wild. The new Americans were curious about this land, wanted to know what plants and animals were there, and most importantly, how they could travel across it to get to the other side of the country. Around this time, President Thomas Jefferson bought all this land from France and asked one of his assistants, Meriwether Lewis, to go on an adventure and discover this new land. It would be a dangerous mission, but Lewis was brave and bold and loved discovering new places. He asked his friend, Lieutenant William Clark, to go with him. So they gathered their team and supplies in a boat and headed off down the river on their daring adventure to discover this uncharted American wilderness.
Before this, a little Indian girl was born far across the country near the Rocky Mountains. Her parents named her Sacagawea. Her people were called the Shoshone, and they lived amongst the trees and wild animals, and learned how to live off the land and hunt like many other Indian families. She felt safe in this place and loved her family. When Sacagawea was 12, her tribe was attacked by another tribe. There was a dangerous battle, and after the battle, Sacagawea and many other girls were kidnapped by the enemies. It was scary. It was a scary time for Sacagawea, and she missed her family. She didn't know if she would ever see them again as they lifted her on their horses and raced away. Later, Sacagawea was sold to a trapper named Charbonneau and later became his wife. A trapper is someone who traps animals and lives off selling their fur and meat.
This is the part of our story where Lewis and Clark meet Sacagawea. They knew on their adventure they would need someone who knew the land and the language. So when they met Sacagawea and her husband, they knew they would be a perfect fit. Not long after they left, Sacagawea gave birth to a baby boy who she named Jean-Baptiste, but Lewis and Clark liked to call him Little Pompey. For the rest of the journey, she would travel with her baby boy tied to her back. The journey down the river was often very dangerous. One day when they were rushing through some very rough water, the boat suddenly collapsed, and everyone and all their things fell into the water. After they swam to shore, Lewis realized their precious journals were missing. Sacagawea knew how important the journals were and bravely dove into the water. She swam down far below the rushing water and found the journal at the bottom of the river. Lewis was so relieved when she swam back to the shore with the journal. Sacagawea was also very helpful because she knew the plants and animals of this wild land. She would cook up roots for them to eat and show them the way when they were lost. She was also a peaceful ambassador to the other Indians. An ambassador is someone who tries to help two different groups of people have peace. Sacagawea knew their language and kept Lewis and Clark and their crew safe. Far along in their journey, they ran into some Indians and asked them if they could trade horses. At first, the Indians wouldn't trade. Suddenly, Sacagawea recognized them. They were the Shoshones, her people who she had been kidnapped from so long ago, and the chief was her brother. She was happy when she saw her friends and family. It had been so long, and finally she was with them again. After celebrating, she helped Lewis and Clark trade some of their things for horses, and although she was sad to leave her family, they were on their way again. She had a new family and a new mission to accomplish. Finally, after many days, they reached the Pacific Ocean, the end of their journey. With the help of Sacagawea, Lewis and Clark had traveled all the way across America. Along the way, they had learned new things about the plants and animals and made maps that would help pioneers and other Americans journey across the country.
All right, my friends, I hope that you learned such great things about Sacagawea. I hope you remember her. And remember, friends, dare to be different. Have a great day, Rangers.